Bonjour à tous et à tous, je m'appelle Rebecca Romere et je suis régisseur à la Fondation Pistoia Musei in Italie et je suis également président de Registrarte, l'association italienne de régisseurs d'œuvres d'art depuis novembre 2021. Je suis vraiment très heureuse d'être ici aujourd'hui et de participer à cette journée d'études qui a été l'occasion d'apprendre beaucoup sur vos modèles de fonctionnement en matière de gestion des dépôts et je serai ravie de partager ces informations avec mes collègues italiens à mon retour. Je remercie sincèrement votre président, Thomas Brancaleoni, ainsi que les collègues Claire Vadeboncoeur et Justine Moalik-Derrien pour l'invitation. Je remercie particulièrement Claire pour sa patience en attendant ma réponse à ses emails. Comme vous pouvez l'imaginer, ce sont des mois très intenses pour notre conseil d'administration et Claire a été très patiente et sensible. Merci beaucoup, Claire. J'ai à mes côtés Guilhem Pardo, qui occupe le rôle de secrétaire de l'association et est l'un des piliers de l'ERC2024. J'espère que mon intervention pourra vous offrir des points de réflexion intéressants pour comparer le mode opératoire de gestion des dépôts adopté en France et en Italie, et cela dans le but de favoriser le dialogue entre les régisseurs de notre pays respectif, de mieux nous connaître, d'apprendre réciproquement, de partager des expériences qui pouvaient nous enrichir et faire progresser notre secteur vers des méthodes logistiques plus efficaces, sûres et innovantes pour la conservation et la valorisation du patrimoine dont nous avons la responsabilité. So, going into the specifics of the topic, I have to switch into English language that it is more comfortable for me, so please apologize, but with my bad French, I tried. The aim of my speech is to give you an overview from the registrar's point of view of the different approaches, methods, and experiences applied to the museum's storages, construction, and management currently adopted in Italy. There are some aspects, some necessary premises to tell you in order to mark the perimeter of my analysis. First of all, our association was born in 2002. We have now 146 members, and almost all of them are exhibition registrars. This last information is really significant due to the history of our job in our country. In the 90s of the last century, the role of registrars started its diffusion in the country, managing the incoming loans for the big international exhibitions. At the same time, the in-house management of the collections inside the museum's lenders was entirely assigned to conservators. So registrars were involved to the loans, curators or conservators were in charge of depots and collection management. During these last years, thanks to the emergence of private institutions as large private collections, foundations, banks, estates, corporate museums, art galleries, the role of the registrar is establishing itself even more day by day. And it is also assuming an important role in the ordinary management of the artworks exhibited on displays or storage in depots. The main actors in the art world quite understood that the conservation and the logistics are complementary actions aimed to maintain the well-being of the artworks even during the handlings, the transportations, exhibition or storage. From a predominance of exhibition registrars, we are moving towards a greater balance between exhibition registrars and collection registrars, and therefore a greater participation of registrars also in management of the storages of the artworks. It took decades assuming the awareness that also the registrars have a role in the field of the preventive conservation. Indeed, registrars identify and mitigate risks during the handling activities and ensure the correct transfer of all information relating to the artworks and its natures in every time. Registrars always know, all of us knows, which artworks leave the storage, why, how, when, and which artworks, why, when, and how return into the storage. It's our job. The second point I want to highlight is that in Italy, as registrars, we have not obtained the ministerial recognition yet, as the Ministry of Culture didn't include our professional figure in the organizational chart of the museum profession officially expected. This means that while the private institutions are free to hire one or more registrars and to add them in its own organization chart, for example, I'm hired with the qualification of registrar in my paycheck. In the public museums, this doesn't happen. Nonetheless, even in public museums, registrars exist, and they have a very good. They are very good professionals. They are formally called with other names, so they exist, but they have another label in their cards and in the emails, such as conservators or curators. And this is because formally the public sector doesn't recognize them. So at the moment, the ministry formally states on the Cultural Heritage Code that the care and conservation of the artworks in storage is under the responsibility of the conservator. But this statement is only on the paper. The reality is different, and fortunately, in lots of museums, large or small, public or private, where registrars operate, registrars contribute to the management of the depots by taking care of the artworks during the handlings operation. As I said, in Italy, the registrars not really participate to the inventory activities as a récolement. The conservation do it. Generally, in fact, the registrar is involved in the movement of artworks inside the depots or from the depot to exhibition space for a viewing or for a shooting or for a restoration activity, or of course the registrar is in charge for external transfer, so in case of the outgoing loans. The registrar plays also a fundamental role when he is called to give a contribution for creating a new storage, expressing the logistical needs to carry out the correct handling of artworks. So necessary materials, packing, stools, or hanging systems, hooks, basements, or the registrars have to express the specific needs of claimants or underline if there's particular needs in terms of position related to movement. Some works are very often requested on a loan, so have to be placed maybe near the door, for example. And so essentially we have to take into consideration that the distribution of artworks for a registrar's point of view have to be functional. To have access, you have to have access to each artwork, and you don't have to move 10 other pieces to achieve one. So it's very important that the depot is very performative in this way. And of course, registrars have their part of responsibility for conservation, handlings, and insurance. So consider that in Italy, most museums are located inside historic buildings where the balance is constantly precarious between the correct conservation of the works, the right microclimatic parameters, the safe conditions of the spaces, and the structural constraints. Inside these kind of buildings, when a new storage has to be created, it is really essential to analyze the features both of the building and of the variety of collection preserved. Furthermore, the storage must be linked to the other areas of the building. It must be easily accessible with an adequate access area, for example. It makes no sense to have a 200 meters square of warehouse if I have to go across a 1 meter wide corridor to get in, or with the only access by elevator. I give you an example from my daily life. In my foundation's headquarters are inside the building called Antico Palazzo dei Vescovi in the main square of Pistoia, that is an ancient Tuscan typical city. And this building has Roman foundations with other 4 medieval development levels. And so we have identified the space for the future storage that will house the collections not exhibited. And so our needs were a quite large room on upper floors to avoid any problems of flooding, overlooked on the main square. Possible thieves would be immediately identified, served by both a lift and wide stairs, able of hosting from medieval goldsmiths to 17th century paintings on canvas with a frame 2 meters per 2 sized. So the room have to contain also the pipes necessary to the heating and cooling system, the electricity. The ceiling is not made with wood depicted, fortunately, but is made of masonry, and there are no frescoes. We only have a portion of walls with the ancient medieval stone visible, but in very good condition. This space is the only one in the entire building with this kind of features. At the same floor, we decided also to put the restoration laboratory near to the depots. And so I worked on this side with my conservator, and we fighted on this way, but at the end we achieved this great result. So restoration area and the storage area very, very close in the building. So this is a very small example, but it shows the complexity of operating inside the historical buildings and how the registrars have to consider different logistic aspects to match together. The point 4 to discuss is that in Italy, museums, whether public or private with a no-profit nature, must pursue the criteria of inalienability of their artistic heritage. In fact, the Article 54 of the Cultural Heritage Code states that the artworks are inalienable or not saleable. In Italy, therefore, the practice of the sessioning of collections, which instead characterize the Anglo-Saxon world, is not permitted. And this means that the collections aren't be sold, means that the collection maintains the same consistency in terms of quantity, or it increases thanks to new acquisition, that sometimes involved logistical challenges. For example, it is important that before an acquisition, the curator or the director speaks with the registrars to avoid acquiring pieces that, one, do not pass through the gates or the windows. Second, if these artworks pass, an additional cost is required for the movimentation. For example, the need of a crane to get in the artwork between the window inside the building. So about the sessioning, I must also add that the commerce, so buying and selling, is admitted for those private profit entities, so banking institutions and galleries, for whose the sale is a core business, of course. Except in the case that the stay notification is activated on some artworks destined to the commerce, and therefore the notified goods cannot leave the country for the final export or even be sold. Another interesting point is that in Italy there are no technical ministerial guidelines that regulate the creation and management of museum storages. In the art laws, the Article 113 published in 2018 on the Annex 2, the law states that there is only one goal to pursue in terms of depots, and that is order and conservation of non-exhibited goods according to functionality and safety criteria. Okay, so the ministry says in this article what you have to achieve. So functionality and safety, okay, of course, thank you very much, but it doesn't say how you have to achieve it. So we don't have any guidelines. So due to this gap, every museum, whether private or public, has full freedom of action, adapting its storage to the features of its buildings, the collection it holds, the staff available, and the budget it has. So pros and cons, of course. So there is no single regulatory reference to refer to, but considering the variety of the Italian museum context, it facilitates the particular reality of each museum. So the storage born from the exchange between professionals in the fields and following consolidated international practices. And also, if an institution has money, it can ask the help of an advisor or of an architect. Regarding the absence of guidelines for museum depots issued by the ministry, there is an only one exception. In 2022, the ministry published this document, le linee guida per l'individuazione, l'adeguamento, la progettazione e l'allestimento di depositi per il ricovero temporaneo di beni culturali mobili con annessi laboratori di restauro. This is the first page of the document. You can reach it on the internet. It's in open source. After the earthquake at L'Aquila, Norcia, and other calamitous events, it entrusted, so the ministry entrusted a task force made up of restorers and non-restorer specialists. Oriana Sartiani is a great restorer of the Opificio Le Pietrature. If you are interested in this topic, you can connect with her. And this task force had to create the guidelines for the setting up and organization of a temporary warehouse for artworks in case of emergency. And you can see, just from the summary, the strong and practical soul of this document. For example, on the chapter 1, condizioni ambientali, chapter 2, requisiti funzionali, strutturali, impiantistici, requisiti per la conservazione, parametri, elementi costitutivi dell'allestimento, i supporti. So so this document focuses in deeply the different technical aspects to management correctly a depot after a catastrophe. The text is also accompanied by appendices and technical data sheets, which constitute an aid in the design of the depots, also when companies are entrusted for the construction of the depots themselves and for the internal equipment essential for archiving and conservation of the goods. So if you download the document, it's very interesting. Here you can see some pictures about structures inside some depots placed in the center of Italy, in the Deposito di Santo Chiodo, Deposito della Curia a San Severino are the most important depots. And here you have some photos, and on the text you have the instructions to realize these structures. Very, very useful for a correct conservation of artworks. I'd like also to underline the importance of working on the emergency plans for the protection and the rescue of artworks in the event of a catastrophe, whether they are displayed in exhibition or placed in storage, and how in catastrophic situation, how the registrar has an essential role to rescue the heritage. You, as a French association, you are a point of reference internationally about these topics. I know you organized a very well conference last year about that. So after giving these kind of landmarks about the storage's management in Italy, let's now see which experiences or trends are adopted in other countries to conserve the artworks. So here other pictures. Okay. Some private foundations or galleries or collectors conserve part of their collections here inside the caveau of Arte Defender and Open Care, which are the most important partners and storage facilities in Italy. I'm afraid that the website link don't function, but you please check out yourself. And inside these two companies, there are lots of possibility to rent caveau for the artworks, and also a foundation in Tuscany. For privacy, I can't say the name, but conserve all the photographic collection at the caveau in Art Defender, because sometimes the institutions hasn't time, hasn't budget, hasn't equip and useful for carrying a collection. So the reorg method. So this method is becoming widespread, also thanks to the promotion of ICOM, especially intended for small or medium-sized museum that need with a limited budget to organize spaces and collections. Last January, ICOM Italy launched the second course dedicated to learning the reorg method, reserved for 10 museums participating with 2 professionals each one. Under the guidance of ICROM training experts, the participants were involved in a learning process which included the first training unit, a second investigative phase organized into teams, a third project phase for the drafting of a reorganization plan for 1 or more storage environments of their own museum, and a final phase in the field with the reorganization of a storage space at a museum with the contribution of all the teams. So a very interesting training course. So another option is the visible storage. For example, at the Egyptian Museum in Turin, along the permanent exhibition itinerary, you can find these kind of display cases that house a significant quantity of archaeological finds linked to the same iconography theme or the same area of artistic production. The finds are marked with a typical identification tag that characterizes the goods, usually storage, in the depot. In this way, this is a piece of storage on display at the end. Another option is open storage. So museums such as Galleria Borghese or Maxi in Rome or Palazzo Reale in Napoli organize guided tours inside their warehouses, which become exhibition spaces themselves, available to the public. In 2019, the Borghese Gallery had launched the format Capolavori dai depositi, la Galleria Borghese racconta, opening its deposits to visitors, conceived as a second picture gallery with 260 paintings, so a lot, displayed on 2 levels. 12 days ago, instead, Palazzo Reale of Naples launched the tours Il Sabato dei Depositi, using this label, and also Maxi open tours itself in its warehouses, and these tours went sold out in few days. So the public is very interested to the warehouse world. It's interested also the case of the Out of Join exhibition at the Galleria Nazionale d'Arte Moderna in Rome. So please check out on the website of the Galleria, because it was an exhibition where dozens and dozens of artworks were exposed to the public and displayed on tables and bases that were characteristic of the warehouse, so pallets and also the sculpture maintained the labels. So a kind of exhibition made so the storage became a real exhibition. So on the website you find some very curious pictures of the exhibition. So another option in Italy is the periodic rotations of the collections. So this operation allows us to give visibility to the artworks usually kept in storage and not usually exposed to the public. And I'd like to remember the initiative of the Galleria Borghese with the format paintings go down the stairs, when in 2022, 15 works kept in the warehouse were presented in rotation along the museum's exhibition itinerary. Another way to rotate the collections is, of course, to create an exhibition project with works usually conserved in storage, perhaps making it itinerary And so in this way, your artworks can travel, be seen, giving visibility to your institution, and you can lighten the storage during, for example, a renovation. If your artworks are outside, you can take your time and do all the renovation activities for the storage if you need to do it. Another possibility is the loan of works in storage for exhibitions. So encouraging the digitalization of museums' collections means allowing the scholarly public to learn about the non-visible heritage preserved by museums, expanding in this way the areas of study and research with new works that can perhaps requested on loan, thus leaving the warehouse and supporting new studies and enriching the itineraries of temporary exhibitions. Another possibility is the long-term loan. So one way of giving visibility to artworks kept in storage is to offer them a position in a permanent collection inside the museum. For example, as Pistoia Musei, so in my foundation, we received on a renewable 5-year loan this plaster sculpture made by Andrea Lippi, an expressionist sculptor from Pistoia of the beginning of the 20th century. And now we expose it on the permanent collection of the venue Palazzo de' Rossi, dedicated to the Pistoian 20th century art that is a permanent collection. So it's a very strange, the history of this artwork, because the sculpture is property of the artistic high school of the city, and it is usually placed with other 15 artworks inside a matroneo that is inside the school, because the school is part of the consecrated church in the city, so very particular architecture. And this way, Pistoia Musei supported the knowledge of this unique example of city's artistic production. And the last but not least, it's Uffizi Diffusi. This is a new format for highlighting heritage conserved in storage and with an international resonance. So Uffizi preserves an enormous artistic heritage within its depots. And in some cases, these artworks were produced by artists from the Tuscan area. So on the basis of a scientific project and through agreements between the Uffizi and the local bodies involved, the artworks of the Uffizi return back home. So these artworks are exhibited for a period of time from a few months to a few years in the place of the original provenance of the artworks itself. And so this is a case of Pescia, a Tuscan town near Pistoia, where a work by Raffaello, the Madonna del Baldacchino, which had been commissioned for an altar in a family chapel inside the Duomo. You can see the church here. Come back home. So the artwork was restored and exposed to inside its ancient provenance church for around 6 months. This activity is the result, of course, of a synergy of local authorities with the help, financial help and support of a local banking foundation. And these kind of operations support the territory, the landscape in terms of cultural and of course economical support and power. So I have tried to outline the state of the art in Italy regarding the management of depots, and I hope that when you come to Italy the next November for the next ERC, we can offer you a visit to some depots in Rome as a social activity. So I take the opportunity to be here today to remember that as you know, the next European Registrars Conference will take place in Rome at the Auditorium Parco della Musica Ennio Morricone from 6th to 8th November 2024. The opening reception will be held on 6th November inside the glamorous location that will be shared soon. And please stay, if you can, until the 9th November on Saturday to participate to the social activities. This event takes place 22 years after the first Italian ERC, or ERC as you say, which also took place in the same city in 2002, thanks to the great effort of the founders of our association. And we are already working hard on the organization of this key international conference focused on networking and encouraging the dialogue between participants coming from Europe, US, and beyond, hopefully. ERC2024 will be an opportunity to discuss the past, present, and future of the registrar's profession and its formal recognition, as well as other key topics such as sustainability, cooperation, and education. There will also be a unique insight into our association as hosts with Made in Italy. What does it mean to work as a registrar in Italy today? What is our specificity and which elements characterize our everyday practice in terms of ministerial and custom procedures? How we manage transports inside historical buildings, historical city centers, the amazing case of Venice, and much more. Our aim is to share experiences, methods, and procedures to make the international cooperation more effective day by day. The team is international, composed of Italian and European colleagues. And this conference will be structured in plenary sessions, workshops, and spaces and events dedicated to networking and the interaction between attendees. For example, we introduce a new format as the speed dating. So I really hope lots of you will attend our conference. I don't know if you have any questions or concerns, or if you want to come back home.
Merci beaucoup. C'est le dernier moment d'échange. Est-ce que quelqu'un a des questions? Profitez avant de conclure.
Too tired and Italian situation too complicated.